All right, so let's take a look. You said number 44? Okay. Okay. Number 44 said we have 3 different types of horses. It is super important that you are writing down all the information that you need from your given. Just randomly writing fractions down does not help you really synthesize what the problem is. So I need you really thinking about what the problem is that you have. All right, so I have 3 different types of horses. 1/4 are Arabian. 2/3 are thoroughbreds. The rest are Morgans. Okay, yes. 2/5? Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate you correcting. So 2/5 are thoroughbreds. All right, I don't know how many Morgans. What fraction of the horses are Morgans? Okay. I want you to forget about what types of numbers they are. All right. We are looking for how many of these are Morgans. How many of you guys agree with this? Yes? Okay. If I add all these together, wouldn't they add to my total number of horses? Okay. All right. So I know that they did not tell us the total number of horses. So if that said to us, like, 15 were Arabian, 18 were thoroughbred, there's a total of 65 horses on the ranch, how many of you guys would be like, I can totally set that up? The number of thoroughbreds plus the number of Arabians plus the number of Morgans is going to be the total number of horses. How many of you guys agree with that? That is the formula. That is the game plan. No matter what kind of numbers they are. The only difference is they're not telling us, you're listening to me, you're not talking to him, because he's the one that asked for it. So you're distracting him. The problem is they did not give us a total number. How many of you guys agree with that? Okay, but we're not dealing with number of horses. What are we dealing with? Valentina? The fraction of horses. So, we know the fraction that are Arabian. We know the fraction that are thoroughbred. We are looking for the fraction that are Morgan. If I add all those up, don't those have to add up to the total fraction of horses? How many of you guys agree with that? That's our game plan. All right, so we have the fraction that are Arabians, R-A-B-A-I-A-N-S, plus the fraction that are thoroughbred, plus the fraction of Morgans. That has to equal my total fraction. That total fraction has to be a 1. Because it's all of it. How many of you guys agree with that? If I add all these fractions up, technically they need to equal 1. Okay, now, I don't know my fraction of Morgans. I do know my fraction of Arabians, that's 1/4, plus my fraction of thoroughbreds, plus x is going to equal 1. I just need to solve this. So for me to be able to add and subtract fractions, what do I have to have? Nico, for me to add and subtract fractions, what do I have to have? A common denominator. So I need to, off to the side, I need to create equivalent fractions with the same denominator. And that 1 is like 1/1. So Cameron, what common denominator would I use really I just need to deal with these two fractions because I can make that 1 anything, right? What would you use? 20. So I'm going to multiply my 1/4 by 5 over 5 to get 5/20. I'm going to multiply my 2/5 by 4 over 4, which gives me 8/20. I'm going to multiply my 1 over 1 by 20/20 to give me 20/20. So now I'm going to put those back in. I have 5/20 plus 8/20 plus x is equal to 20/20. And now I can solve from there. All right, so if I add these together, I get 13/20 plus x is equal to 20/20. I'm going to add a negative 13/20 to each side. And I get x is equal to 7/20. I believe that's right. So 7/20 are Morgan's. So this is why it's super important that you pay attention to writing game plans and making sense. No matter what the numbers are, you're making sense of that by writing a game plan and then figuring that out. This is something I absolutely expect your level of math to do. Yes, Addie? Yes, but can I finish speaking about this one? Please, I'd love a question on this one. So if I add all these fractions together, don't they have to equal 1? So because 1 is all of them. It's 100%. It's a full fraction. So that's why they have to equal 1. Because if I add this fraction together, and this fraction together, and this fraction together, they have to be 100% of the horses. All right, so that's, if we put these all as 20ths, that means that 5/20 plus 8/20 plus whatever this is has to equal 20/20. Do you understand that? Well, 20/20 is 1. That's why it's 1. Okay. Questions on this one? Okay. Addie, what can I do? 33? Yeah, let's do 33. Cameron, did that help you? Awesome. All right, so if I take a look at 33, 33 said the width of a rectangle is 2 3/8 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw my rectangle. So my width is 2 3/8 inches. My length is 1 3/4 inches. All right. No. The rectangle is, okay, so this is going to be an expression. So this is telling me my length is 1 3/4 inches longer than the width. All right, so that's what my length is. That right there is an equation itself. All right, length equals. What does 1 3/4 inch longer mean? If it's 1 3/4 inches longer than the width, what mathematically does that mean? Alex? I do. I have to add the 1 3/4 to the width because it's that much longer. Absolutely. All right, so if I was to write this as an equation, this would be L equals width W plus 1 3/4. So that's what this is. Now, I don't know if I need it or not, but I wanted to make sure that I have that written down because that is the relationship. I do expect you guys to know how to do these and to be able to read that and be like, oh, that's an equation. Awesome. I'm glad that you did. Let me finish this up, but I'm glad you found it. Okay, so then it says find the length of the rectangle and the perimeter of the rectangle. Well, for me to find the perimeter, I have to find this length first. So I'm just going to substitute my width in for my W in my length equation. Sit up, please, gentlemen. So I have length equals 2 3/8 plus 1 3/4. Again, if you don't have this game plan, essentially that sentence is our game plan, and that equation, you're fixing that now because you have to write equations. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do my equivalent fraction work over here. I'm going to multiply 3/4 by 2/2 to give me 6/8, so I have an equivalent fraction. All right, over here, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So I have 2 3/8 plus 1 6/8, and I end up with 3 plus 6 is 9/8, and that's 3. So this is 3 plus 1 1/8, which gives me 4 1/8. So my length is 4 1/8 inches. And now I would just do my perimeter problem. All right. How do I find the perimeter of a rectangle? How do I find the perimeter of a rectangle, Sophia? We do. We're going to add all the sides together. And because of what we're doing today, because we have not talked about multiplying the fractions yet, on this one, I would not necessarily expect you to use 2L plus 2W. I'm okay with you just adding all the sides. If you did use 2L plus 2W, then you needed to go back in and remember how you multiply with fractions and mixed numbers, okay? We're going to do that in the next section, okay? Does anyone want me to finish perimeter here? Okay, Valentina. Of course it's okay. We just haven't covered it again. I'm expecting you to know how to do it, but we haven't reviewed it again, so I'd be okay if you didn't use it. But if you did, that's awesome. Okay. What else can I do for you guys? Addison. 45? Okay. So let's take a look at 45. So 45 said I have 5 1/2 plus 1 1/4 plus 2 1/2. Since everything here is addition and all of it are positive numbers, you can add 3 at a time. I don't always advise that, particularly when we have fractions, only because I think it could get confusing, but you can. How many of you guys added all 3 of these at one time? All right, the rest of you just added 2 at a time? Yeah? Okay. Addison, which way did you do? Did you do 2 at a time or 3 at a time? 2 at a time. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and change my fractions to equivalent fractions. I only really have that 1/2. I'm going to multiply it by 2/2 to get 2/4. So if I rewrite this, I have 5 2/4 plus 1 1/4 plus 2 2/4. Did you add the first 2 together first? Okay. So I'm going to stack them. So I have 5 2/4 plus 1 1/4, and I get 6 3/4. Are you cool with that? Okay. And then I'm just going to add to that my 2 2/4. So I end up with 8 5/4. Well, I can't leave that as an improper fraction. So I'm going to have 8 plus 1 1/4, which gives me 9 1/4, and I hope that was the right answer. Okay, Cullen.
Is it okay if you added like the 1/2 first and then spread it?
Sure. If you saw that these two were like terms, you could go ahead and move those. Only if you can tell me this. What property allows you to add those two together first because they're not in order? Excellent. The commutative. Go get yourself a Starburst or one of my candies from my closet. Nice. Ada, your hand had been up. So I have a couple bags of candy. There's like the plastic bag in there has chocolate and stuff in it if you'd rather have that. But Ada. 48, yep. Let's do this real quick. So if I take a look at 48, I have 1 1/2 minus 3/8 plus 3 4/5. All right, so Ada, the first thing I'm going to do, is this the one you're talking about? Okay. First of all, I'm going to do adding the opposite here. Okay. Secondly, I'm going to use the commutative property as Cullen suggested, and I'm going to add my two positive numbers together. Did you do that? Awesome. So I have 1/2. My common denominator here is going to end up being 40, I think, right? Okay. So I'm going to multiply this by 20 over 20 and get 20/40. And then I have my 3/5, and I'm going to multiply that by 8 over 8, which gives me 24/40. Did I do that right? Are you good with that? Oh wait, this is 4/5, isn't it? So I need to change that, and this is going to be 32. So I end up with 3 and 32/40 plus 1 and 20/40. You guys, I'm going quickly, so if I make a mistake, stop me. Okay? I'm going to add these. So I end up with 4 and 52/40. I'm going to leave that for now. You can change it. It's not that you're going to get it wrong if you change it, but you might have to end up borrowing. Right, so I'm going to leave it because I know I have something else to add to that. So if I take my 3/8, I'm going to multiply it by 5 over 5 to give me 15/40. So I'm going to subtract off of that 15/40. And I end up with 37. Yep, and this is a 0, so it's 4 and 37/40, and I think that's the final answer. Oh, you can't do negative. Yeah, so just leave that. If you know you've got to add something else to it, leave it and worry about that at the end. All right, you guys cool? Okay.